Welcome, everyone. My name is Joyce Graff. I am the District Governor-elect for Rotary District 7910, and we're very glad to have you with us today. Today, we're going to be talking about e-clubs and cause-based clubs, and we have a special guest with us who will be talking about both of those. My co-host today is Johnny Ahern. Hi, Johnny.
Hi, Joyce. How are you?
Good, good. Great to have you with me. And Johnny is going to be the district governor following me in District 7910. He is also in charge of dealing with clubs who are contemplating new innovative structures. So we're going to suggest a couple of structures you might want to think about today. And Johnny and I will be talking with Ken Masson. So welcome, Ken.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here to talk about this subject.
And Ken, would you introduce a little bit the club that you are with?
Right. The name of the club is the Rotary Club of World Disability Advocacy. And we are exactly that. Our role is to work on human rights for people with disabilities on a global level, and we are doing that. At this point, we have about 35 members in the club. We started with 20.
So geographically, you are part of District 7910, but in fact, you reside in a different place outside of District 7910. So tell us about that.
My heart is still in District 7910 because I had been there since the 1980s. Sometime I started as a Rotary member, but I retired and I moved down to Columbia. And since we're a virtual club, it doesn't really matter where I am as long as I have good internet.
Right. So that's Colombia as in South America.
South America, yeah, you're right.
All right.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you. Because you really don't have a geographic base and you all don't meet in person. That's what makes you an e-club or an electronically connected club.
That's correct. I mean, there are about more than 300 e-clubs in the world. And they actually started up in the year 2001 from a club that was experimental in Colorado. And from that one club, we're grown. We're all over the world, e-clubs. I'm actually in a group of e-clubs that has now been started in Africa. And we have 30 to 40 members of e-clubs in there. We anticipate to grow much more than that, and hopefully at least be 50% of the e-clubs in the world in that group.
So in part, it started as a way of getting past the convenience factor. We can't all break away for 2 hours at lunchtime, but we can dial into Zoom, and I'm sure it got more popular over COVID times. What other motivating factors are there for e-clubs?
Well, particular in the fact that my club is focused on disability. So many people with disabilities cannot make it to a physical location, or they can make it, but it's more of a challenge. So from people with disability standpoint, it's really opened the door for them to become members of Rotary. That's not the main purpose of our club, because the most important word in our group is advocacy. Having a disability, not having a disability, has nothing to do with being in the club. But once again, a virtual club for people with disabilities, or people who are, in particular in the case to Rotary is obviously aging. We've talked about that a lot. And as you age, you gain disabilities. So it would make it easier for you to continue to go to Rotary meetings in that situation.
Right. So it may be hard to get up the staircase, but there are also some hurdles in connecting electronically. Have you found that age sometimes interferes with their ability to Zoom in?
A bit, yeah. And it's not just age that is a challenge, because as you do go around the world, some areas do not have the best internet.
Right.
And so sometimes They can get into meetings or they can't get into meetings, depending on, in some areas, also they don't have a computer, so they're going in on their phone, which creates a challenge on that also. But I've been doing this for 2.5 years at this point, and I'm getting used to that right now. You get used to people coming in, dropping out, and they're going to come back in again. So you work it out. You work it out, and you make it happen. Well, and the benefit also of a virtual meeting is you record it. So if you cannot make it to the meeting, you still can see the meeting by looking at it on your own time.
That's a good point. So you can watch the recording at a later time.
Mhm.
We have a couple of other people with us that we wanted to bring into the conversation here, is that one of whom helped to birth the club, Diana Nestorova. Hi, Diana.
Hi, everybody.
Diana is the Assistant Rotary Coordinator for Zone 32. And so she's moved up in the structure beyond our district, but is a past district governor of Rotary 7910 and really worked closely with you, Ken, to create the club. So how did you go about making the club happen at all? Bringing it together, chartering it, getting it off the ground?
As everything in Rotary, it all starts with one person and one idea. Back in January of 2021, the group that was part of the DEI committee, the group for disability, Ken approached me and he said, well, we do have a big group of people that are really passionate about that particularity in Rotary. And it all started with the fact that we all know when we go to a physical meeting, although that was not the time for physical meetings because it was the pandemic year, but still, when you go to a physical meeting, and if you have a disability, and some of the restaurants were not disability friendly, and we were limiting ourselves from people that would be a really good advocate for service. This is how it all started at the beginning. It was a movement. Seriously, it was a big movement. We got to 200 plus people all around the world that joined the group for disability and how we can help people with any sort of disability join Rotary or continue being in Rotary. The group from 4 people, it grew to 270 plus people. So we had to structure it. And we went through all sorts of ways to really keep this group active, to revitalize it, and to attract people that are passionate about the cause, because this is a cause. We were able to launch the club, to charter the club in 17 days. There were challenges, but we overcame them all because it all started with one person and one idea.
That's great. We also have with us Elliott Rittenberg. Elliott is the current district governor of Rotary District 7910. Hi, Elliott.
Hi, it's great to be here.
I know that you are passionate about some causes as well, maybe putting together one or more cause-based clubs.
Thank you. First of all, I really do believe that cause-based clubs are an important component to Rotary's growth, because that's how we attract people that are passionate about a particular interest and get them involved and help them realize their goals or their dreams, whatever they may be. I personally believe that there are 2 areas where cause-based clubs can be important contributor to Rotary, and that is 1 in the environmental area and 2 in the mental health area. I think in the environmental area, we have an opportunity to meet our young people where they are, because this is the most important issue that faces them going forward. And if we're going to attract people like them to our organization, that's a question that we have to be leading on and committed to making a difference in environmental sustainability. It's actually the fastest growing action group in our organization right now, the Environmental Sustainability Rotary Action Group, and they are adding members at a rate that is outstripping all of our other action groups, with the possible exception of the other area, which I have some interest in, and that is in our mental health initiatives. Our Rotary President, Gordon McAnally, has made mental health a signature cause for him in the year ahead. And it was an issue that personally affected him, as it does everyone. What I was actually surprised about as I toured our different clubs recently, I really thought environmental sustainability was going to be the thing that fired people up. But it turns out that this mental health initiative really has people's attention because it touches everybody. Everybody has a story. So I think using these two causes as an example, Rotary gives people who have this passion the ability to act on it, and we help people succeed in bringing those passions to some sort of action. So that's why I think that cause-based clubs are going to be very important for us moving forward.
Right, and this kind of e-club is a way of finding more than just the 3 people you can find in your little town. It finds people who can do breakfast, lunch, or dinner. They don't have to afford $32 for dinner at the golf club, things like that.
I know Diana and Ken have experienced this, so I'm actually going to refer to Diana for this question. Can you explain to the listeners what the difference is between, say, a satellite club versus an e-club, and how many people you need to get one of these started?
A satellite club is a daughter club of already established, already chartered, already active Rotary club. In the past, the satellite clubs were formed when the mother club is a large club with lots of membership, and they meet, let's say, lunchtime, and there were some people that cannot make the lunch meetings. They can, morning meetings or evening meetings. So that's when the idea of this sub-club of the mother club came. The satellite club needs 8 members to be formed, and it is part of the big mother regular Rotary club. Nowadays, because everything's changed and Rotary's changed a lot, nowadays the satellite clubs are actually people from the same geographical territory that can get together at a different place, at a different time. Even they can have a cause for their meetings with the idea of a future forming their own club. In the past couple of years, and now the satellite clubs are formed with members that are first-time members in Rotary. So someone just, go around town or go around their friends, and they say, hey, the satellite club would like to focus on environmental issues. And you can do that.
Okay, so if we start a new club from scratch, we need 20 members. If we're just starting a satellite club, we need 8 members.
Yes.
Is there a separate threshold for an e-club?
No. An e-club is regarded as any other club, and we do have an example here on our call, Ken Masson with the World Disability Advocacy Club. They are technically an e-club, but at the same time, they are a fully chartered Rotary Club. And as Ken mentioned, there are more than 300 e-Rotary clubs around the world. If the e-club wants to be a separate club, like a club, not a satellite club, they have to apply as a new club and has to have 20 chartering members in order to apply to Rotary International and in order to be approved for a Rotary Club.
It does
Thank you
have,
for that.
it does need to have the blessing of the district.
Elliot, could you help us understand what's the difference between these satellite clubs and e-clubs and a Rotary Action Group? Because I know the district has been talking about setting up a Rotary Action Group for mental health. What does that mean, and where is it going to draw its membership?
That's a great question, Joyce. So you asked about satellite clubs and e-clubs and action groups. So as Diana was saying, a satellite club is really just a subset of an existing club with members who need to be off on their own for whatever reason. Perhaps they can't make the meeting time that the mother club is holding regularly, or perhaps they have a cause that they want to pursue. They're still members. The members of a satellite club are still members of their parent club, but they tend to meet and engage in activities on their own for a number of different reasons. The e-club, of course, can be cause-based, it can be location-based, but it's a regular Rotary club. It starts off with a minimum of 20 members, and it sets its own rules and meets when it needs to meet and pursues its own passions, whatever they may be. An action group is very different from any of the other organizations within Rotary. Action groups actually are independent entities that are affiliated with Rotary, but they're not under the Rotary governance umbrella like a club or a district is. An action group consists of people who are passionate about a particular cause or subject and who bring expertise to that cause or subject. So there are a number of action groups. There's a water action group, there's a disease action group, and there's environmental sustainability. And the one that's been getting a lot of press lately is the mental health action group because of Gordon's focus on mental health issues. So that action group consists of experts that are in many ways, many times professionally engaged in the area that the action group is focused on. So, in the environmental area, many of the members that are involved are environmental scientists, engineers, geologists, people that are involved with biology. And they come together and form committees in the action group that specialize in different subject areas that are affiliated with their cause. The same in the mental health action group. A lot of the people that are involved at the international level of this action group, they're psychiatrists, psychologists, educators, and people who are involved with mental health issues on a day-to-day basis. The purpose behind assembling these experts is to make that expertise available to our districts and clubs. Because as you know, Joyce, everything in Rotary happens at the club.
Right.
All of the organizations above the club are really there to provide support and expertise to the club. And that's what the action groups do. So what we're proposing in our district is to start a chapter of the mental health action group, which helps carry their mission forward and basically replicates what they're doing on a global level in our district, where we assemble a team of experts who are involved in mental health or who are passionate about mental health. And then they go on to support projects that we provide resources for and expertise for within our clubs so that they can have the conversation in their communities.
Thank you. So if my club wanted to start a project that would be helpful in mental health, for example, we could go to this Rotary Action Group for some assistance in formulating that plan and finding some expertise to help us out.
That's correct. And another thing that the action groups are doing is they have, for lack of better words, pre-packaged plans or toolkits that you can access that give you a project, a ready-made project that you can roll out in the community. The Mental Health Action Group has a couple of them. One of them that caught my attention is a toolkit to help educate pediatricians about mental health resources that are available. Pediatricians, of course, are the first line for our kids when something happens to them. But it turns out that pediatricians don't have a lot of mental health training. So the Rotary Action Group on Mental Health Initiatives has put together this program that they're asking Rotary clubs and Rotary members to approach pediatricians in their communities with, say, here's some resources that are available when you run up against these kinds of issues, which you may not have access to any other way. So that's kind of the role that the action group is playing in this case.
So I was very curious in reference to projects. So as you know, we did the Day of Service last year with multiple districts. So I know Ken and his World Disability Advocacy Club also participated in the Day of Service. But Ken, do you want to explain what you guys did for a project, considering you have members from all over the world?
Sure. It's an interesting process that I had to learn because I came from a traditional club to the E-Club and start to think globally as opposed to thinking locally. And yes, we did do the Day of Service, and it was done in Kenya. I think it was the furthest away project that happened on that day.
There was, yeah.
And it was I put it out to the members and said, this is a Day of Service. Do you have any ideas? And this member in Kenya came forward and said, yeah, I do. And they were, the government in Kenya wanted to plant trees. So they had the idea of getting people with disability involved in planting those trees. And they turned it into a big event. I can give you 3 examples of things that we're working on right now. Inclusive education for people with disabilities in many places in the world, and maybe all places of the world, needs work. A lot of the teachers are not properly trained. We have one of our members who does that in Nigeria. She's put together guidelines for dyslexia because a lot of people just don't understand dyslexia. We're also working on disaster plans for people with disabilities on a global level. Many countries have disaster plans, but they don't have disaster plans that spend much attention at all to people with disabilities. And as you can imagine, in a disaster, different kinds of people with disabilities are facing many, many kinds of challenges. So it's important that the first responders and the families understand how to deal with this. So that's a global thing we can work on. Another issue that we're working on is cerebral palsy. There are cerebral palsy organizations around the world, but very few of them are global. So we're actually going to set up a fellowship, a Rotary fellowship, to bring awareness to the needs of people with cerebral palsy, plus the fact that they can get together and have a support group on cerebral palsy on a global level. The biggest problem is there are hundreds of projects. There are thousands of projects. When I first took on this position as the president of the club, I said, okay, let's save the world. You can't do that. You can't do it. So you've got to define your projects, and you've got to focus on just a few projects, and maybe make a plan that you can tackle some of the other ones down the road, but you can't do everything. I had to learn that lesson. So
that was actually going to be one of my next questions. Being a club literally spreading the world, how do you pick a local project when it isn't really local?
Once again, we try to identify projects that are global. We try to do that, although we don't ignore the local projects too. And we discuss on a board level. We have a system set up, as most Rotary clubs have, that you can send in your proposal for the project. And we have to look at it on a board level and decide, are we capable of doing this? Are we capable of doing? We have to be honest about that. If it's not necessarily a club project, then I look to each of our members. They're all specialists in the disability field to take on their own project, and we'll support you because you're a member of the club in any way we can, but it's not necessarily a club project, it's a member project. So we have a lot of members working on member projects too.
So my educational background is sign language interpreting. So I'm always thinking about how can we provide accessibility to those that are deaf and hard of hearing. So my biggest thing is captioning or transcripts. So being an e-club for the World Disability Advocacy, what can people do at the district and club level to help support advocacy for world disability? How can more clubs be inclusive to those with disabilities at their own local level?
First of all, there's two levels there. And one of the things we are going to be working with the support of the district is the fact that we have to make sure that Rotary clubs themselves are accessible. We have to make sure that they're not only physically accessible, but also that they're digitally accessible, that the web pages meet certain standards that should be met to make themselves accessible. So awareness on that level is something of importance, and I'd like people to think about that a lot. There was a cartoon, they have a manager being talked to by somebody who says, well, your hotel is not accessible. And the manager says, well, we don't have anybody here with disabilities. Yeah, Rotary already does lots of stuff for people with disabilities. God bless them. God bless them for what they do. I'm so proud of Rotary for what they do. Look at them as human beings that can use some help and assistance. So it's a change of thinking on Rotary's part. Instead of sending out hundreds of wheelchairs, think about the individual needs of each person. Sign language interpreters in your meetings, closed caption is great, but it has 80% accuracy. But there's nothing more accurate than sign language. I understand it's an expense and not every club can do it, but at least on a district level, it would be good to have sign language interpreters.
Accessibility begins, as you say, in the clubs. And a lot of clubs will say, well, we don't have anybody with disabilities here. But if you look at the probabilities of a group of people who are aging, if you have people even over 50, you almost certainly have at least 10% of the people in the room are somewhat hard of hearing.
Sure.
And that's an invisible disability. And especially men are very unlikely to say to you, I can't hear you. Okay. They will sit there and nod their heads in the right direction and just not get it. And they are just not in the conversation. So I think all clubs need to behave as if there are a goodly number of people with difficult hearing in the room and with difficult vision in the room. Make sure that your PowerPoint slides have big letters, 28 point or better, that people can see from the back of the room, and that you have captioning turned on, that you're using a microphone. Just little stuff like that makes an enormous difference. And if people are in the conversation, they're much more likely to turn out for your projects and to participate in the discussion and to be those active Rotarians that we all want.
And one other very quick story. One of our members is from was in a Rotary. She has polio. The meeting was on the third floor. She couldn't get to the meetings, so they got rid of her because she couldn't go to meetings. That's not the right response. That's not the response.
Right.
I just want to say thank you and congratulate Ken for what he's done with the World Disability Advocacy Club. As we listen to some of the issues that he's facing, he's really pushing the boundaries for where Rotary needs to go in, being inclusive to a very diverse group of folks all over the world and trying to touch each one of them individually to figure out how they best can fit in and how we can best help them realize their potential. He's just shown us the best example of what Rotary is all about. So thank you and congratulations.
Thank Ken for taking the time, and Diana and Elliott as well for joining us for this call. So thank you all.
Thank you very much. And Ken, thank you again for all that you do every day, and especially for being with us today. And thank you for everybody who's watching this video. We hope that you got what you needed. And if not, please do contact me or Johnny or Elliott, and we'll be very glad to work with you. We want you to go forward with strength and be a great, successful Rotary Club. Thank you very much.